Hey, good morning, everybody. David McLeod here, coming to you from Belmont, California. We're having problems with a Cookie Monster. And the Cookie Monster is on Tara-Jenelle's computer, preventing her from getting onto the system right now. But I've got her on the phone here, and we're going to try and she's going to continue working to try and get on her end. And we're just going to see where it goes. I mean, as I was saying to Tara-Jenelle, technology is fantastic when it works. Unfortunately, sometimes we have little glitches and little problems and little issues that get in the way and make it hard for us to keep going. And maybe that's what this is all about. Maybe we have to be brave in the face of difficult, unexpected challenges. And maybe that's what soul courage is all about. But I don't know if you guys can hear. I'm gonna just see if we can talk to Tara-Jenelle. She's on my phone here, so we might be able to exchange some words. So Tara-Jenelle, welcome. I'm gonna put the phone up close to my microphone. Hopefully people can hear you. Just say hello.
Hi, guys. I'm bummed out. I'm trying to get on. Almost, so wish I was there. Hope everyone's doing great today.
Well, that's all right. You know, as I was saying, you could just keep going, trying to get on, and I'll try and talk to you at the same time if you're okay with that. Does that work for you for now?
It works for me.
Okay, because I can see that your voice is coming through, and I can see it showing up on my microphone. So I believe other people can hear you as well. So anyway, I'm sorry for all the technical glitches, and thank you for your patience, Tara-Jenelle. But I guess the first thing I'd like to ask you, and help me out here. I think we all have a pretty good idea of what courage is, but I'd like to know for you how soul courage is just different from a generic kind of courage.
Oh my goodness, I'm sorry, I'm multitasking. I think I'm getting in any minute here. I just clicked get into Hangouts. Okay, hold on a second. All right, now that I think I'm going to be with you in one moment visually. So the question you asked me is, I'm so sorry, how is soul courage different than regular courage?
Yeah, that's kind of where I was coming from.
Okay, well, the way I look at it is, and here's a really good analogy. I actually just thought of this the other day when I was on another interview, and it makes so much sense to me. Regular courage kind of feels like remember when you were little and you would go to the pool, like the community pool, and everyone wanted to get on the diving board. And so it's your turn, and there's like 7 kids behind you. Right. And every time a kid goes up a stair, all the other kids are going up a stair. So it's not like they're waiting on the pavement below. They're like right under your bum. Right. So to me, regular courage kind of feels like, okay, it's your turn. You're up. You're on the end of the diving board. And all the kids, there's one kid on each ladder, and there's a little line on the pavement, and they're all like waiting for you. And you're just there, and you're looking down, and you're scared. Mm-hmm. And you don't know why. There's no explanation other than you're just scared. So what do we usually do? We shut our eyes, and we grabbed our nose, and we just jumped in the face of it. So to me, that is kind of an analogy of what fear is. As they say, I think there's some beautiful famous quote about moving forward in the face of something you don't want to do anyway. Right. Soul courage, on the other hand, to me, is being conscious of how, instead of squinting our eyes and plugging our nose and just jumping in and hoping that we wake up, if you will, open our eyes and we're still alive, we made it through, it's being aware and conscious the entire time of the process, feeling our way through. And even if the feelings are scary, allowing them to come through and crying or being upset or being joyful and laughing or whatever the feeling is, feeling our way through and then releasing that feeling through an expression, whatever the expression might be. Maybe it's tears, maybe it's laughter once again, maybe it's talking to someone, maybe it's journaling. Mm-hmm. And that is where I feel we make a connection with ourselves, our soul, and a connection with others and life. And so that's a difference to me.
Yeah, and that's a very, very powerful distinction, and I appreciated the analogy as well. And one of the things that you brought up there that I think is very relevant here, and this is something that Tommy and I talk about all the time in our presentations, is really about awareness, and it's about being present to what's going on right now. And you talked about being up on that diving board and covering my nose and closing my eyes and all the rest of it. Yeah, I've had that experience myself, actually. So yeah, I think somehow we do try to sometimes anyway, when we're young, try to ignore the fact that we're feeling afraid and work through it in that way. And it works. It helps us learn how to be brave, I think. But I really like this notion of, all right, I'm feeling fear. I'm noticing that that's coming up in my body, and there's something that I need to do, and I'm gonna step through it consciously. I'm gonna walk through the whole process. I'm gonna be very aware all the way through, and that is what I call total presence. So this is really cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the cool thing, we have the choice and the opportunity to do that with anything and everything. And we can take moments that may feel like just regular courage and turn them into soul courage, because through that awareness and through that presence, as you were saying.
Right.
Oh gosh.
Oh, sounds like you're making a little progress there. You're almost through.
I am. Hold on, writing files, moving it into place, running package scripts.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm sure they don't care about all that.
Yeah. Well, this is, like I said, we're going through a process right now. This is a perfect analogy for ourselves. Things aren't going the way we thought they were going to go. This is life. This happens to everybody.
Yeah.
And so what are we doing? We decided to go ahead with the presentation anyway, even though it's not going to show up the way we thought it was. Hopefully we'll get you on screen here shortly, but for now, this is what it is. And I think that all of us have to look at our entire lives that way. Oh, look at you. I can see you there.
I was so excited. It froze. I was like, I think I got on.
That's great. Great. Well, here you are, and welcome. So now everybody can see you. And I'm so thrilled to have you here. It's been a while since you and I connected. So I'm very, very happy that we're together finally.
I know. Where am I now? Oh, I'm still on. Okay.
You're still on. Don't worry. The camera can see you. So just keep looking at the camera.
Okay. Great. Yeah. So
maybe we'll take this a little longer than 30 minutes today, just because we had these glitches at the beginning. But I think that was a great entry point, a great initial discussion. And thank you for being so flexible in going through this as we figured out how to navigate the technical glitches. Anyway,
I'm on board. I'm sorry that it took me forever. So anyway, I'm here. So let's talk soul courage.
Yes, absolutely. So what's next on your thought process based on where we've gotten to so far?
Okay, in the discussion that we were just talking about, okay, so one might then ask, great, that sounds fun, Tara. How can I move into soul courage, or how do I get soul courage? That's what people are now asking me. Mm-hmm. And I love this part when they say, how do I get soul courage? Because I get to say, you already have it. That's the cool part. We all have soul courage. Absolutely. We all have soul courage because we are all a soul, and the soul is the essence of all of life, right? So it's not like only the good people or the evolved people or the aware people get it. But here's the tricky part. Even though we all have it, it's not activated in all of us. It's one thing to have courage, and it's another thing to be courageous, as we know. Mm-hmm. So when a lot of us, it's like having talents. We all have talents. I believe every single one in the world has talents, but we all don't use them. We all don't express them and share them. So knowing this is the first step in activating our courageousness, just being aware of it. Like, okay, I do have the courage that comes from deep within. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think, well, I can't speak for myself, but I know other people resonate with this. There have been times in my life when I have done things that just seemed like completely way beyond anything I would ever do. They were like totally courageous. I really stepped into something big. I was able to move beyond that fear that was inside me. And I know that that was something that was driving me from within. It wasn't just, a random thing. It's happened many, many times in my life. And I think for me personally, and maybe you can speak a little bit to this, when I get that place, I feel just totally alive. I feel totally inspired, totally motivated, totally excited about life. And so I seek ways to make that happen even more within my life. Is that something that you've experienced?
Oh, that's precisely it. And in fact, the way I describe the feeling that you're trying to describe now is a sense of freedom. It's like you feel free, like you're not in hiding anymore. And that in return creates this like bliss almost. Even if it's scary, even if what you're moving through is hurtful, you feel, I feel, I'll speak for myself, like, okay, I'm feeling this, I'm doing this, I'm moving through this. It's an empowerment. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think it's more than that. It's a sense of power for sure, but it's a power, a very authentic kind of power that comes from within. It's not about overpowering someone else. It's not about, you know, being better than anybody else. What it really is for me, it's just about being full and understanding, wow, I really am all here right now.
Absolutely. And in fact, I said empowerment. I didn't say power. And the only reason
I wasn't making you wrong. I was just
distinguishing that because I don't like the word power. I shun from it because of the things that you said. So I'm right on board with you that it is a sense of being self-fulfilled, if you will. So we'll do that. And so then everyone asks when they realize, oh gosh, will I have it? Okay, now I just need to activate my courage. How do I do that? Well, I'm not here to give anyone steps or tell anyone what the way to activate their soul courage is. But for me, what I did to activate it, what I went through is I discovered a three kind of, I call it the sacred formula. Three things that I call the sacred formula, which are feel, express, connect, which is something I discussed like 5 minutes ago. And that for me is how I activated my courage into courageousness. I move into feeling. I allow myself to feel whatever I'm feeling. And then I express it, because just feeling something, feelings are wonderful. But when we just have emotions trapped in our body, we all know what that's like. That's not healthy. So it's the release of them and having them move through, which is so grandiose and so exciting and so, you know, freeing, and expressing them in some way. And that's where, for me, I found the connection. I found the connection with my true self, what I like to call my soul. And others, when I express myself from my deepest part to another person or even to life, I feel connected. I just feel like I get it, like I understand, like, yeah, all right. It just all makes sense. So
beautiful. So feel, express, connect.
Yes.
Yeah, I like that. That's a very nice, simple, easy to remember kind of mantra, if you like. Feel, express, connect. It just has a nice rhyme, or not rhyme, a rhythm to it. Has a nice rhythm to it, and it's easy to remember. So say a little bit more about the feel part. What does that really mean to you?
Well, the feel part, I gave it. I like to give things really cool words, because that's a part of me that is very creative and can be annoying to some people, but I like it. So the feel part I call going in solitude. Having some solitude, whatever that looks like. And it doesn't always have to look like going on a big retreat or taking a hike up in the mountains. It can look just like sitting on the back deck and sipping a cup of tea. It can look like just being present and aware of where you are, even when you're making breakfast. Giving yourself time and to reflect and identify your feelings. I tell a story in the book that when I first discovered solitude, and it was when I was younger. And you know, when we're little, we react, you know, we don't understand, and we just cry and scream and, you know, react, pounce and everything else. Well, there was one moment, and who knows what it was, but I was crying about something. And my mom always said, if you're going to cry, go up to your room, you know, stay up there for 20 minutes and then come out and join the world again. I hated that. When I was little, I always thought, that's the meanest thing ever. How could she abandon me in such a moment of need? I mean, it's so vulnerable. But I'll never forget. I mean, now that I reflect upon it, what it was giving me an opportunity to do was be alone with my feelings and really reflect on them. And at that time, I had a little diary, and I wrote my feelings in my diary, and I'd cry, and I'd just sit there and I'd go, you know, and whatever, talk to who knows who I was talking to, God or my past grandmother or something. But what I was doing was I was identifying how I was feeling. I'd say, I'm so mad, or I'm so hurt. Why did my sister have to say those mean things? And then 20 minutes later, maybe I'd still be feeling a little bit bummed out. It's not like I'd be all better, but I would have a better understanding of what I was feeling. I go, oh. And I'd come out, and my mom say, you doing okay now? I'd say, yeah, you know, I was just hurt. It was really mean of my sister to say. I'd understand. So that was the gift she gave me. That was when I first discovered, wow, this, of course, I didn't call it solitude then, but this identifying of feelings things is coming in handy, and it does. So taking a moment, once again, whatever that looks like, to move into identifying how we're feeling. Yeah.
Yeah. And that, I think that's very important. It's something, again, that Tommy and I talk about all the time, is awareness and feeling. They're highly related. And I think, as you talked about it, the way you describe it, it's being present. You know, being present right here, right now. That means not thinking so much about what happened in the past or what's going to happen in the future, but what's going on right now. Oh, I'm feeling all these weird things going through. I see tears are coming down my face. This hitching is going on in my body. I wonder what that's all really about. And then maybe I'll notice that there's some thoughts coming along with it and all the rest of it. So it's really a process of raising my awareness about what's going on and maybe what my soul is trying to communicate with me, even though I don't necessarily know that my soul is doing that. That's a pretty powerful thing. And so now you've got the feeling part going. It sounded to me the way you were describing it, you had the expression part happening at the same time. So talk a little bit more about the express piece now.
Okay, I shall. But I want to touch on something important that you said. It does go hand in hand with being present. In fact, this whole sacred formula that I have, in fact, life at its grandest is about being present, as you said a few moments ago. And a lot of people say, how do I be present? I mean, easier said than done. It's such a catchy phrase. It's like the trendy thing now that everyone's saying, but how do we do it? How do we get there? One of the easiest ways that I know, because the mind's always running, you know, the chatter and even the mind could be running about, I need to be present right now, even if that's what it's saying. But one thing that I think is so simple that can help us just bring us into the moment and create that sense of awareness is just to do something like this. Okay. Or look at your hands and move them, or look at your feet, or go and look in the mirror. Remind yourself, you know, of course we're not our body, but bring yourself back to this moment and out of the head, you know, remind yourself, I'm here, you know, I'm here moving in this body. So anyway, that's just a small little thing that I think helps to at least kind of start peeling the orange into presence.
I like that. Start peeling the orange. And in fact, peeling an orange might be a perfect way to get present. You know, this is one thing I've known about for myself is, you know, you don't have to sit in a particular pose with your hands in a particular shape, you know, looking and oming on a particular mantra. Those work for some people. Those are techniques for bringing yourself present, but they're not required. As you said, when I'm looking at my hand and I'm looking at it, I'm not thinking about it. I'm looking at it. And I just marvel at the shapes and the swirls of the fingerprints and the lines across and the gaps between my fingers and the way my fingers move so magically and beautifully. I'm not thinking about past or future. I am right here.
Right here, exactly.
Right now. Yep. And that is what we're talking about. And you can do this in a million ways.
Anywhere, exactly, right.
And exactly. You could be going out for a walk. You maybe see a flower up the road. Just focus on that flower the whole time as you're walking towards it. As it gets bigger and bigger in your awareness, notice more and more details showing up. Right. It's a beautiful practice.
It is. And, one of my favorite things that you bring that up is the walking meditation that always keeps me present. And it's gets you out of your mind. Basically, it's about listening to all the sounds, the wind, the scurrying of the squirrels up the trees, their nails on the bark, you know, the birds, you know, the horns of the train going by in the distance. Yes, we actually have that in our town, but all these things, and just looking at things. And then you realize when you get out of it, you're like, oh my God, I wasn't thinking about all the stuff I have to do, you know, the dry cleaning I have to pick up, people have to call back and email, and, you know, all this stuff up here. So,
Right.
yeah.
So great. So we have the feeling part, and we have the expression part, and that together seems to be a big way for us to become present.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we talk about the connection part. Bring us full circle onto that part of your formula.
The expression part, to back up a little bit, I didn't want to not say my cool soul word for that.
Oh, sorry.
That I've dubbed soul render.
Oh, nice.
Yes, I've dubbed it that because, as we were saying a moment ago, it's one thing to feel our emotions and just have them swirling through our body, but it's another thing to surrender to the expression of them.
Mm-hmm.
And like I was saying a moment ago, that can be done in a various myriad of ways, whether it's crying or laughing or being joyful or writing or talking to a person and looking in their eyes and expressing your feelings. But to surrender to releasing those feelings out of your body. That was the key part of the expression.
Perfect. So you go into solitude so that you can soul render.
Yes.
And then what? Now, what's the magic phrase you're going to tell us here?
Well, you can still stay with the feel, connect, express. I mean, feel, express, connect.
Oh, I love those words. I love your words. They're great.
Oh, okay. Well, the connect word that I've created is called socialize.
Nice.
And it's just a sound, socialize, and on a soulful level. So when we move in, when we feel and we express those feelings, then we organically create that connection with whatever we're doing. And I get into a whole bit in my book, Soul Courage, about socializing. In fact, that's the bulk material of the book, because I think it's so important. I think this is the part that I believe enriches people's life. They're interacting with others. They're interacting with life. Hey, look, I'm a bit of an isolator. I'm a very seemingly extrovert, but I stay home a lot. And a lot of people say, oh, you got to get out and socialize. And they try to throw my stuff at me. And I go, hold on, folks. It's not about socializing. It's not about being a social person. It's about being a soulful person.
Right.
So that's important to know, because people have come to me and they say, I just don't want to be pushed into being on or being something I'm not. So it sounds great, but it's not for me. And I say, that's not what it's about. It's not about being something you're not. In fact, it's the opposite. It's about being everything you are, bringing that out.
Yes.
So letting the guards down, taking the masks off, feeling in that moment and expressing and feeling a connection with others and with the hills and with yourself. Yeah.
You know, it's interesting that you should mention that. I totally resonate with what you're saying. I'm very comfortable, you know, being out in public, stepping up on a stage, talking, doing whatever I do. And I love to be alone too. I really do. I spend a lot of my time alone. And in some ways, maybe some people think I spend too much time alone, and that might be true too. But so I totally resonate with what you're saying, and I get it. And this idea of socializing, I think, is very important too, because I really truly believe that we're all connected anyway, and it's just a question of any illusions we have about separation are just strictly in our mind. That those are just, you know, things that we make up to help us navigate through our world and say, well, if I want to go there, then I have to go around this person. I can't really go through this person. You know, so there's some benefits to this idea to the illusion of separation. But what happens is we forget that we're actually connected. And so I love this whole cycle, the solitude, the soul render, and the socialize approach, because it just helps me to remember the 3 key points and helps me to stay connected to the fact that I am connected.
Yes.
Which I think is really important.
And to feel it on a physical level, I believe that the soul knows all there is to know on a conceptual level.
Totally.
And that the reason that we came into these physical bodies is so that we could have the actual experience of it. So that plays precisely into what you're saying about having an experience of oneness rather than just thinking it or knowing it.
Right.
Now, some things that we do sadly, but this is what a lot of the book is about, is why don't we do this then more often? One would say, well, if it's as easy as feel, express, connect, I'm on board. And what's taken me so long, right? Or why haven't we been doing it? Because it's scary. It's safer to hide and numb out and, you know, block out. And even when we're alone, like you were saying that you tend to be alone a lot as well, that doesn't mean that people can be, there's two different ways of being alone. You can be alone and be numbing out, be drinking or smoking, or be doing online gambling, or maybe you're just even online Facebook all the time, but whatever you're doing, you can be blocking out any sense of communication with your internal self, your true self.
Yeah.
Don't want to hear it. Don't want to feel, I'm scared, this kind of thing. We've all been there. I do it. Okay. The only difference now is I know what I'm doing. And I go, come on now. Do you really need to watch another movie on Netflix? What's going on inside? Let's not hide from this anymore. You know? So just because you stay home all the time, or even if you're out, sometimes you can isolate. Just because you're out all the time doesn't make you a soulful person. You can be out and then be in. We've all seen the people.
Yep, absolutely.
Just there for the ride physically, but they won't dare come out, you know, internally. Yeah. So important things to look at. They can not permit, but they can be roadblocks in the process. Yeah,
absolutely. So, and I think an important item that you touched on, I just want to bring a little bit more awareness to. If it's as simple as feel, express, connect, why is it so difficult to do? I want to come back to that a little bit. My belief is part of the reason that it's so hard to feel and express is that many of us, even in today's more advanced society, many of us are taught that it's not okay to show our feelings.
That's right.
That it's not okay to express anger or fear or sadness. We're given that message from a very young age by adults who haven't learned how to express their own feelings. And so consequently, we have this cycle, this recurring cycle, where we're teaching ourselves and teaching our children that it's not okay to express. Now, I know for myself, that really was true. A lot of my emotions simply weren't welcome in my family. Mm-hmm. Now, it's not that, you know, I was a particularly unusual child. I probably was pretty average in most ways. But I had a lot of energy. As you could probably tell by the way I show up, I'm really kind of intense. I'm like that. And I think that's partly because I had so much energy when I was young that I wasn't allowed to express, that only now it's starting to come out, you know?
Because it was inside. It was like we were discussing.
Exactly.
Having all the feelings swirling around. Right.
Yeah. And so I had learned, I heard, don't cry. You know, boys don't cry. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't okay for me to be sad or to express sadness. And I'm sure other people on this show have heard this before and have had similar messages extended to them. So that's one of the reasons we learned at a very young age to shut it down. And so consequently, trying to turn it on again as we get into our adult lives is hard.
It's hard. And you're right on the nail with that one, David. That was not a good analogy, but you know what I mean? You're right there. Exactly. And I have a whole portion in my book dedicated to vulnerability, because I love the idea of vulnerability. And I discuss initially in the chapter just what you're saying. We have been raised to keep quiet, you know, don't ruffle your feathers, you know, be seen, not heard, and, you know, all the stuff, you know, don't make such a big deal about it. And appear confident, you know, we've been trained, you know, how to appear confident and stoic so that we can get that job and so forth, you know, being raised.
Right.
Don't be vulnerable, whatever you do, because that looks like you're weak. We've got it all backwards.
I agree.
All backwards. I think you truly look cowardly when you do those things. And you truly look strong when you allow yourself to be vulnerable in the face of it all.
Right.
You know? And to still stand there, whatever you're doing. So
I absolutely agree with you, and I love the message that you're conveying. We're starting to get close to our end time here. I do want to honor one question that came up from Lynn. She's asking, and I think this is something we alluded to earlier on, but how do you use courage, and I'm sure she means soul courage, to find your purpose? Now, I know this is something that you talk about in your book. So what, can you share a little bit about that?
Okay. I believe that we already know our purpose, that it's not something we have to find. And if you listen carefully, you may even be hearing it being whispered or being shown to you in the things that you do and the opportunities that come out, that it is there. But for some reason, usually fear, we stay away from it. And it doesn't mean usually fear of the thing. Sometimes it's usually fear of leaving what we know is a secure job or a secure situation. But knowing that it's there is the first step. And even if you don't agree with me, say Lynn says, no, I don't know. I've meditated, I've gone to retreats, I lay down, I journal, I try to do everything, anything I can to find it. And I don't know it's there. So say you're feeling that way. Believe that it's there. Trust that it is there. And that will be part of it surfacing. When we trust, we're opening the courage up. We're giving, it's like opening a door. It's like saying, I don't know if it's going to come through or not, but the door's open if it does. When the door's shut, when we just say, I don't know where it is, then I don't know. It's just the courage is in opening the door within.
Yeah.
And to stepping into that and into the 3-step sacred formula, possibly you could use this, Lynn. Step into the feeling around it. And even if you're feeling frustrated, having the courage to feel frustrated and write about it, or talk to yourself a little bit. Say, gosh, I'm so frustrated. I'm ready to find this. I'm ready to feel this.
Yeah.
Even if maybe there's things she thinks might be. Are we running a short on time? I see you tightening.
Keep going.
Okay. Whatever things that you think there may be, Lynn, popping in, allow yourself to identify how you feel around this. Say you think, well, I really do enjoy photography, photographing young children. Step into it for a little bit. See how it really feels to envision and visualize yourself as, a photographer, or whatever the things are that you may think they would be. Allowing yourself the doorway open to feel into them. And of course, in expressing and connecting all that, I believe is part of the way of anything, whether you're trying to find what your purpose is or you're just trying to communicate with your spouse.
Right. Well, I resonate totally with what you're saying. I think that, I know that from my own experience, a lot of my life, the first, let's say 40 years or so of my life seemed like chaos. Like I didn't really know where I was going or what I was doing or what was supposed to be happening. But after I got past all that and I started to become more clear about my life and started doing my own personal growth work and all the rest of it, I look back on that first 40 years and I realize all of it was guided in some way to get me here where I am now. And so I may not have been able to articulate a purpose for those first 40 years, but today I'm very clear on what my purpose is, and I can see how everything along the way got me to this place.
Absolutely.
So you may not necessarily have a clear, you may not be able to say your purpose in a nice little bite-sized chunk or a little bumper sticker. That doesn't matter. But you know down here in your heart when you're on purpose. You know when you're off purpose. That's what I would say about that.
That's right. Exactly. It's a feeling, and we do know it. So just to listen to that and to trust it.
Yeah. Well, Tara-jenelle, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. And
fast.
I know. And in spite of all the technical stuff or challenges, we did manage to get on. We had quite a few viewers here today. I know that they're very interested in what you had to say, and I'm just honored that you chose to join me here. So thank you so very much. Oh, yes. Don't forget about the book. And people can get that on Amazon, right?
Yes, we can get it on Amazon.
Awesome.
And you don't need the book, guys. I mean, believe me, I'd love if you read more into the message and everything, but we all have it, as I said. So this is not about me selling my book, but rather just reminding, your listeners that it's here, it's inside.
Beautiful. Thank you, Tara-jenelle. And next week, folks, Tommy's going to be back, and we're going to be doing an episode on what we're calling public service. And that's going to be the name of it. I'm just going to leave it at that, and you can have some fun thinking about that for the week. And then next week, join Tommy and me for a public service announcement. Bye-bye.
Love it. Bye.